Okay, seems like my microphone's on, so that's a cue to get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this conversation on innovation in education globally. My name is Bassem Hijazi, and I'm the Community Development Lead at WISE, and I'll be moderating discussion on generative AI's impact on the way we learn. With me today are two distinguished guests, and actually my fellow colleagues at WISE, Niamh Wellen and Aurelio Amaral, who manage our various programs. So for those who may not have heard of WISE before, WISE is a global education initiative by Qatar Foundation, and we've been working as an enabler, platform, and driver of innovation in education since its establishment in 2009. Most people know us for the summit, which takes place every 2 years in Doha. But we also manage a series of programs and research initiatives that are dedicated to supporting outstanding education projects around the globe. And since then, we've brought together key education policy and tech stakeholders from more than 150 countries, supporting hundreds of organizations that serve over 250 million beneficiaries worldwide in total, roughly. And in fact, we're here in Greece right now with the 6 WISE Prize for Education finalists who, they've officially embarked on their 1-year journeys today. They're going to be working on their respective solutions and further developing them up until the lead up of until the next 2025 summit. And they'll be presenting those solutions later today on stage in the alternative stage. So be sure to check that out around 2:40 p.m. to see those solutions in action. A big thank you to the Tipping Point for the gracious invitation. The Tipping Point is a nonprofit organization that helps students make more informed and targeted decisions regarding their studies and future career paths, while also preparing them for the workplace of tomorrow with the necessary skills they need. So kind of aligned with some of the work we do at WISE. But to start this conversation, we're going to be discussing from our vantage point as enablers, really, what we've observed to be the trajectory we're heading in when it comes to this technology's impact. And I want to start with you, Niamh, simply from the question of definitions, right? When we think of the word innovation, if we're going to discuss innovation in education, we need to be clear in terms of our definitions. And some might make the common association with the word innovation to technological advancement, right? Especially after GenAI. So I'd like to ask you, as someone who often works with frameworks and set criteria to evaluate innovation in projects, how do we define this word innovation and its context in education? And has that definition evolved since GenAI's advent?
Thanks, Bassem, and good morning, everyone. Lovely to be here. Thanks for having us. I don't per se think that the definition of innovation has changed. I think what has changed is the lens that we look at when it comes to innovation, and specifically in relation to education for us at WISE. Of course, I still think it still rings true that technology does play a key role in what we see as innovation when it comes to practices and methods in how we apply things in different education contexts. But I think for us at WISE, what we have seen a change in is what we look for in terms of potential when we consider and evaluate different programs when it comes to the WISE Prize specifically. I think because what now we're looking for is the space that a potential solution can have to fill a gap that we are currently in, given that we're in this new space, this new era of GenAI. Then I think if we're to speak in practical terms, like if we're to take educators as a cohort as a whole, simple tools like Turnitin, a plagiarism tool that I'm sure we're all aware with, quite a few years old now, that was quite innovative of its time 10, 15 years ago, but now is essentially obsolete when we think about how we use GenAI in terms of content generation and support when it comes to students completing projects, teachers developing curricula, etc. And I do think now we are definitely in a big transition when it comes to how we look at innovation through that lens, because we still are figuring out the kinds of tools that we need to answer to the fast pace that GenAI has put us in, both in terms of the education sector and beyond.
Would you say it's fair to claim that education systems today have been upended essentially from this technology, in the sense that you mentioned Turnitin as an example of it's an artifact of a time that was a foundation or a bedrock of the way we build our schools that was probably conceived from 50, 60 years ago or more, right? Would you say that now with the advent of GenAI, I mean, I think a lot of people are here to figure out what we don't know about this technology, which is a lot, right? Is it fair to say that we don't really know how this technology is going to impact the way we learn?
Yeah, I do think certainly at a government level, and as you trickle down through those stages when we think about even school leadership from a more practical lens, I think we're still very much paving the way. I do think that we have a responsibility to look towards the younger generation and students themselves, because they are often the ones that are most well equipped with new technologies, including different generative AI softwares and tools. So I think maybe if we could work on establishing a better feedback loop when it comes to those that utilize these kinds of tools, frameworks, etc., and then be able to bring that back and feed it back to, as I said, educators, to school systems, and then higher up when we think about government and those in various leadership roles. I don't know yet how that pathway is going to go. I think we're all very much in the middle of still figuring that out, but it's certainly interesting to see. But I do still think that there's work to be done.
Aurelio, bringing this back to the way we evaluate our projects at WISE, recently this year we sort of reconceptualized the WISE Prize for Education, which is sort of our premier program at WISE that recognizes innovative solutions around the world and supports them. What are the key lessons that we learned from relaunching this project and from the more than 400 submissions that we received this year that we evaluated, and from the 6 finalists that we're working with today, who are hopefully in this room right now? Tell us a bit about what are the key lessons we learned when it comes to generative AI and the way it's impacted the program and also the way we perceive innovation.
Well, thank you so much, Bassem. Kalimera to everyone. As you mentioned, we redesigned this prize because we understood the need to play a more active role in supporting the development of new solutions in education. It's aligned with what Niamh just shared. Our last WISE Prize laureate from last year, Safina Hussain from Educate Growth, she was a great example of how a education initiative that has been operating offline for years can introject new tools with technology to advance their work, right? So we have sometimes this misconception that the use of AI, the use of technology more broadly in education can only be in super well-connected schools, in wealthier environments, right? But that's not necessarily the case. So just to give you guys an idea, Educate Growth operates in India, basically reaching out door to door in rural villages in the country to try to find girls that are not enrolled in school. The team works with the parents to convince them to enroll those girls back into school, right? So these are communities that are very much disconnected from the basic digital infrastructure that we are used to. Safina and her team, they found an interesting way of using technology. They worked with a tech company to develop an AI-based algorithm that would better identify where to knock doors on. So basically, the team would spend a lot of time trying to find these out-of-school girls. And with this prediction model, they would be able to better predict where these households with out-of-school girls were. And that saved them a lot of time, resources, and manpower, right? So that's a good example of how to introduce technology in the infrastructure of, in the design of an education intervention. And that inspired us when we were redesigning our prize. We wanted to see organizations that were already working in the education space, delivering impactful solutions, being able to either create a new solution or an enhancement of their existing solutions using tech or not, but most of the applications that we received had at least one element of tech to accelerate the results, right? So, and we have with us here today 4 of our 6 finalists who are using to certain degrees AI and technology to address problems that are still very much perennial. They're still very much foundational to education. And also the other way around. Sometimes we need offline interventions to raise awareness and to build capacity on skills that are very much digital. So we have all of this in the pool of finalists. I hope you guys get to see Darso, Tumo, Bonaco, and the Queen Rania Foundation later today at the alternative stage at 2:40. But that's in a nutshell how we experienced the transformation in our program that reflected the transformation in technology and education more broadly as well.
Yeah, and on the topic of skills and opportunities, shifting to the present now, where we stand today, based on all the work we've done in the program and WISE since the last summit in November, what would you say are the key challenges and opportunities to pioneer this technology in the right way to achieve the learning outcomes we want in the projects that we're supporting in the schools?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we also run another initiative of WISE called the Test Beds, which basically is an effort to match innovation that we spot at a global level with schools in Qatar that are interested in testing and piloting those solutions in classrooms. And we've been through a couple of cycles of this initiative. Initially, we would identify the solution first and present it to schools. And now we're actually doing the opposite path. First, trying to identify in conversation with schools what type of solutions are the most relevant ones for them at that given moment, and then go to our global community to identify the best match for them. And as you hinted, this is also a result of reflections on how we can best implement ideas into classrooms, because it involves sometimes procuring a new solution. There are compliance issues. There are data privacy concerns as well. And for a school leadership team, that can be often burdensome, time-consuming, and often also not aligned with their key priorities. Their key mission is to make sure that the how can I say, the business as usual operations of the school are running smoothly, right? So introducing something new can be sometimes too challenging. And that's what we try to do. Also helping those schools to get the professional development needed in collaboration with these solutions, so that the team doesn't feel that it's a burden to adopt them in classroom. So these are some of the challenges, but again, it's also an opportunity when we see the potential that they have, and when we see that there's buy-in from a community of educators to adopt those ideas in the classroom.
Yeah, no, and you covered a lot of ground there, and I think that just shows a lot of the things we're getting involved in essentially around the globe. So I do want to give a chance for the audience to ask a couple of questions, but before that, I'll just end off with a final question to you, Niamh, about skills. On a personal level, and in terms of what you've learned from your time working on the WISE Prize as well as other programs at WISE, this is a constantly evolving question as the technology continues to develop in different ways. What would you say in today's world right now are the key skills that we need to prioritize as human beings in response to this technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the one that really comes to mind is adaptability. I know that that's a soft skill, and I actually think that we don't maybe give enough weightage to these kind of soft skills when it comes to thinking about how we interact with technologies, with the ecosystems of those that we work with across the education sector. I think we need to be able to approach this new phase of GenAI with an open mind, because I do think there is still so much that we don't know. That can be quite disconcerting, and I think for those that we work with closely with our programs, largely from the test beds that Aurelio mentioned just now, we do often see that, especially when we work with educators, they are often inundated with different kinds of softwares and tools that are in some ways imposed upon them in different school settings. And it's very much just, here you go, here's the tool, use it, see how it goes, and maybe not so much communication or space for feedback. So what we're really trying to do is to be able to provide these kinds of solutions, both through the prize and the test beds, but to really keep at the forefront of our mind that things don't always work out. It's okay that that's the case, but that what's most important is that we remain open to the kind of change that we need to see, and to be able to also make sure that our students are also in the same kind of environment, that they can too give enough time and space to be able to equip themselves with these kinds of skills.
And it's a very contentious topic in general, the way we learn today and the way these technologies are impacting us. And I'm sure a lot of people in the room have opinions, people coming from different backgrounds, different areas of expertise. We'd love to hear more from our audience in terms of some questions. Do we have a microphone to pass to the gentleman, or do we just do it? Yeah. The gentleman here in the green sweater.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your talk. Just a quick one. My name is Yanis, and currently representing one of the major publishing houses here in Greece, in Athens. So I just wanted to understand what do you deem now is the role of textbooks? What I mean by that, how do you strike a fine balance between textbook utilization within the classroom, and GenAI/software technology? And what I mean by that, since I do have 2 kids, and what I can really see is that they get really, I would say, focused on their mobile phones, the various tools that they can actually use. On the other hand, I guess, and since we do not have that scientific analysis yet in terms of the impact that technology does have to a child's brain and the way that they embrace knowledge, how do we strike this fine balance? I guess between textbooks, paperbacks, children's actually reading through a book, irrespective of that's fiction, non-fiction, or educational, and technology. Thank you very much.
Who'd like to take that question?
That's a fantastic question. Maybe I'll take a stab. If I'm thinking about from a child's perspective, like, we know that there have been numerous studies connecting both the tactile experience of holding a book with how they intake information, and that does play a key role, particularly when we think about the early childhood development, like 0 to 5 years stage. So maybe I'm speaking from a personal note that I do still think that they carry a lot of weight in terms of how we actually learn. Of course, I think we all need to be open to thinking about the different modes of delivery when it comes to taking in content. So screens are never going to go away. I think we know that, and God knows what will be available to us in the future. But I guess what's important for us to do as leaders in the space, and for parents, teachers, and more, is that we need to find the right balance between utilizing both, and other methods too, in a healthy balance. Because we also know that there are various negative implications related to screen use, etc. So I do think we do have a responsibility, and maybe it's also something that we need to be taken at a more serious level when it comes to policy implications too.
Do we have time for one more question, or do we wrap up now? Sure. Can we take the lady here? Yes.
Thank you. So thank you for the amazing talk so far, by the way. I just want to add to answer on Mr. Yanni's question. I think we don't necessarily need to see the new GenAI technology and the textbooks as two different things. But I think we need, indeed, when we're speaking about young kids, we also want to avoid that they spend 8 hours a day on their screens. So I think we need to leverage this new technology and try to enhance our textbooks with it. So I've seen, for example, that publishers I'm working with right now are trying to use the GenAI technology in their textbooks. And of course, those publishers, they are limited because by human resources, they only have certain amount of capacity, let's say. But if we would use GenAI to enhance those textbooks, I think that would be an amazing step, because you can use more innovative exercises. You can give a list of difficult words, for example, and say to the GenAI model, hey, use these words and create 10 sentences that create an exercise, for example. So I just wanted to add upon that and ask your opinion about it also. Thank you.
I would say that's the type of idea that we like to see in our
that's
pool
what
of
we're looking
applications.
for.
Yeah.
We're looking for these ideas. We're looking for people to exchange these ideas to lead to actual solutions on the ground. So what we would say in response to that is essentially, come to the WISE Summit. That's where the magic happens. It's happening on the end of next year. Dates will be confirmed. Those discussions will be turned into the next 2 years of direction for WISE in terms of the way we manage our programs and research initiatives. We're looking for this input from different stakeholders across industries. So we highly encourage you to do that, as well as, of course, attend the upcoming session with our finalists at 2:40 p.m. But if you want to jump in with anything, yeah.
I think we're out of time, but
I think so. Yeah, the zero has been flashing there
Yes.
for a while.
but thank you guys.
Thank you
again.
very
It was
much, everyone, for
very
Thank
joining
you.
us.
insightful.
Yeah.